Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Shia, and if you're new here, welcome to my little book corner of the internet. And if you are a returning viewer, as you can tell, I have like a little small new change of background. I moved some shelves around so that I can have like a little bit more of a library looking feeling. So we moved out my shelves out in the like kitchen area over to here. If you watch my physical TBR video, you notice like they were all separate. I still have the multiple shelves I have on the walls that I'm going to keep out in the living room because I obviously don't want to take them down. I'm testing out this background, seeing what angle is best, but I am liking it so far and I'm happy with how it's turning out. I'm just trying to figure out how I want to decorate the bookshelves because they're kind of plain looking and I want a little bit more of a warm feeling with my bookshelves, so I might get like some new fairy lights just like I had on my other bookshelf. It's probably not long enough for it to go around. We shall see. It was enough of a move to like move everything from the bookshelves. I wish I kind of filmed it because I wanted to put together and how it looked here, but you know what, I was like too focused on carrying all that stuff and I was getting really tired because we had to move out a lot of like different furniture to like get it out. Anyways, all that to say that I got a new background. In today's video, it's going to be that time of the month again where we go over all the books I read, but this time for March. I can't believe we're in the end of March. I already posted my April TBR, so that was the one posted before, so check that out as well if you want to know what books I'm reading in April. So shows all of the new releases I'm keeping my eye out too because I want to prioritize those since I've been waiting for a year to like get those sequels. For my March TBR, I did end up reading 5 out of the 5, so I successfully completed my TBR of the month, which is crazy because 2 of the books on there I was avoiding for the longest time and they were the books I was most intimidated by, but I'm so happy that I finally like finished them. As usual, let's get started with my stats. So like I said, I read 8 books. Let's go over the different genres that I read, and it's a lot different from like how many, fantasies I normally read. So this month I only read 2 fantasy romances, 1 high fantasy, 2 young adult fantasies, and then 1 was a contemporary romance, 1 was a historical fiction, and also a literary fiction. The amount of pages I've read in total is 3,450, and then my average rating was 3.93. So I had 2 5-star books, but then 1 was like a 2-star and the other one was like a 3-star. So I kind of like averaged it out to 3.93 because 2 were high, 2 were low, so, and the other ones were just like in the middle, like 4-star range and everything. Yeah, I think that's all the stats I usually go over, so let's get started. The first book I ended up finishing in March was Throne of Glass by Sarah J. Maas. I've been wanting to reread the Throne of Glass series for the longest time, and I finally decided to stop like wondering about it and just pick it up. And the lucky thing about it is that halfway through reading Throne of Glass, Sarah J. Maas announced that ACOTAR 6 and 7 is coming out soon, so I thought it was a perfect time to actually reread the whole entire universe. I know a lot of people say that you don't necessarily have to read Throne of Glass again for ACOTAR 6 and 7 to like, make sense. I've read every single book in the universe already, so I can attest that you don't have to do that, but I've been planning to do my reread anyways and might as well just reread the whole entire series along with rereading ACOTAR and Crescent City. And also I already started it, so I just don't want to stop and go into ACOTAR because I'm hoping to read ACOTAR like maybe a couple months before ACOTAR 6 comes out so that I can be fresh with that world before. When I first started reading the Sarah J. Maas books, I first read ACOTAR, the whole entire series first before I picked up Throne of Glass because I wanted to get the sense of her writing first before I jumped into this very much fantasy forward series. If you don't know anything about Throne of Glass, or you're one of the lucky ones where you haven't gotten any spoilers, we follow a character named Selena, and she is a slave in the salt mines in this world called Aurelia. And then one of the sort of like guards and the Prince of Adarlan come to choose a champion for this assassin competition that they're holding over at the castle. So they come over to the salt mines. Vandeauvier basically make a deal with her that if she comes and competes in this competition and she wins, then she has to serve the king for maybe 3 or 4 years being the exclusive assassin for him, and once that 3 years is done, she can be free and be let go and she can do whatever she wants. And so of course she ends up taking that deal, but when she gets to the castle, there's like a lot more secrets that she uncovers, a lot more stuff that are connecting to her past. I gave this one a 4 stars. Throne of Glass, the first book, is not one of my favorites. I think this is probably the weakest of the whole entire series, at least in my personal ranking. All the books later on in the series are so much better than this, but the first time I ever read this book without knowing what the entire rest of the world and all the characters have entailed, I also gave this a 4 stars, and I still think it deserves a 4 stars because I expected something different when I first ever went into this series. I didn't realize that it was Assassin competing with it, and then I was like wondering so badly how they were going to make this whole entire plot a 8-book series, but then all of the stuff that she uncovers within the castle, and then the stuff that we find out about the connections to her past and stuff that will, you know, be revealed later on. And in this whole entire series, when rereading it, it's a different story because when stuff is like being mentioned and you see the Easter eggs that are gonna become a bigger plot later and the foreshadowing and everything, it's so different rereading this whole entire series. You could tell from this book how young Sarah J. Maas was when she first started writing the whole entire Throne of Glass, but you could see the little connections that she was trying to do and also the plotting that it takes and then the mastermind that it was to connect everything that was mentioned in this book to Kingdom of Ash. It's crazy and I am loving it still so far, and I'm trying to see how I will be rating all the books further on as we go. All that to say that I'm excited for ACOTAR, and I'm so happy that I had this inkling to start reading the series again before the announcement came, and I'm in Crowd of Midnight, and I'm so happy to go through that so that I can get onto my favorite books of the series. So yes, I gave this a 4 stars. And the next book I picked up was read in the Books I'm Intimidated By vlog, so I'm not going to get too into detail of this book because you can watch that vlog if you want to know all my full reactions. But the next book I read was The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna. If you watched my previous TBR video, this was one of the prompts that was chosen, that I chose a book that was going to make me cry. We follow 2 sisters, and this is set in like right before World War II started. Vianne and her sister Isabel haven't really seen each other in the past few years. They're not really close. There's like a 10-year age gap between them, and Vianne lives in the countryside of France with her husband and her 9-year-old daughter. And so we go into their backstory and we find out that Vianne and Isabel unfortunately lost their mom when they were young kids. So instead of taking care of them, their father like basically shipped them off to like a countryside to be taken care of. Once Vianne got married, she got married as a teenager because she found out she was pregnant. Isabel basically feels that she was abandoned by not only her dad but also her sister. So we follow both of them as they see the start of World War II. Vianne's husband gets sent off to the war to fight on the front lines. Isabel is basically kicked out of her finishing school because she doesn't want to act like a proper lady and everything. So she gets sent off to live with Vianne in order to be safe from Paris because the Germans were occupying Paris. It's basically a story of both of them dealing with how to overcome all of the things that are happening in the war. Vianne chooses a different way by trying to stick her hand in the sand as much as she can because she doesn't want to bring attention to herself or her daughter. And Isabel is like very impulsive and reckless because she's never been taught how to handle herself or her emotions growing up. So she feels strongly, you know, against the war and against these Germans. So she ends up finding a way to go back to Paris to help out this hidden organization that helps out fallen airmen to safely leave France because obviously she didn't want the German soldiers basically bringing them in to be prisoners of war. They are trying to decide who they want to be in this war and whether or not they can just stand aside, especially for Vianne's sake. If she can stand aside and let her people and her friends get hurt while she's like trying to basically save herself and her daughter, and the decisions that they have to make. This was such a heart-wrenching story because throughout the whole entire book you see the sense of the war. You see how other people have really lived in this war. And yes, it's a fiction book, but you know that a lot of these stories are usually based on true stories or people's experiences that they've had while living through this war in the 1940s. I sobbed at the end of this book. Some of the revelations that happened, some of the plot twists, I didn't think there'd be like plot twists in here because it's a historical fiction, and I thought it was just gonna be, you know, following the war and how these people interacted with it and how they were affected by it. But in all honesty, I was completely shocked by a couple of the things, and especially the last revelation we had. I couldn't like handle myself anymore after the last revelation happened. I love the way this was written. The way Kristen Hanna writes is like very immersive, so you feel yourself in the story. You feel yourself watching these people go through the hardships that are happening and the stuff that like people actually had to go through. And then the last quarter of the book was like the saddest part because they have to go through like the hardest things that they've had to gone through in this war. And and I was so angry at points and so unbelievably saddened by a lot of the stuff that was happening, what our characters were going through. So I ended up giving this a 4.5. I couldn't really give it a 5 stars because of the fact that the pacing was kind of off for me. I didn't like how the middle part, we kind of spent like a lot of chapters with the same sister rather than like how it was at the beginning where we alternated the chapters with the different sisters, or like less chapters with one. I just wish that we saw both sides at the same time rather than like focusing on one sister in the middle, and I didn't really feel emotionally connected with the characters until maybe the last part of the book. I felt bad for them and I felt like what they were going through, but I didn't fully connect to them. I absolutely love this book. I can't wait to pick up more Kristen Hanna books. I thought her writing was absolutely beautiful and I really liked how she put you into the story, so highly recommend. And the next book I picked up was We Who Will Die by Stasia Stark. This book has been buzzed about the past like month or couple months, I think it is. Everyone was comparing it to like Vampire Diaries. I love Vampire Diaries. I was Team Damon, of course. We follow this character named Arvel. She lives in the slums with her 2 brothers. She's basically the main caretaker of them. Something happened to their mom. One day a vampire comes and basically propositions her and says that she has to go through these trials again over at the main area where the emperor is living, and then once she wins these trials, then she can go and work her way up to being one of like the henchmen for the emperor. And once she gets there, she is tasked with unaliving the emperor, and in turn he will heal her brother. Her brother has sort of something wrong with his lungs, so he has to take like medicine every day. He's like constantly coughing and not being able to live his life. Of course she takes it because she has no other choice, and when she goes to this like Coliseum area where she lives and also studies and trains in between these trials, she ends up going through these trials and meeting all these different people, and then it's sort of like a gladiator style trials. I ended up giving this book a 2 stars. I just felt the pacing was so off. There would be points where she's like in the middle of these trials doing the stuff that she needs to do, then it would jump to the next paragraph and then she would be in training, and then the next paragraph she'd be like eating lunch. Like it would just be jumping around everywhere, and I felt like there was so much going on in this book. Not only we had the vampires that she was dealing with in this Coliseum area that she had to fight against, but she's also called like a sigil mark where they have like different color like sigils that form on their forehead, and once they are awakened with their powers, they have like different strength of their powers. Some are silver, some are gold. Humans in here that have no powers and have no sigils that are not vampires are called mundanes. There was so much going on, and also it's supposed to be a love triangle. She ends up connecting with a old love best friend that she had, and so they have to train with each other and everything because he forces her basically to train. And we also have a second like love interest who is the emperor's son, and he comes in here to cause havoc with her and the relationship she has with her best friend. I really did not like my time with this book. There was so much thrown into it, and details and plot devices and people and different magic systems, that it just like took away the depth of everything. Like I said, I ended up giving it like a 2 stars. I just don't see myself continuing on with the series, and also the ending was such a mess. There was like plot twist after plot twist after plot twist that didn't make any sense to me. I didn't like We Who Will Die, and I do not recommend whatsoever. And the next book I picked up is also the second book in my most intimidating books vlog, Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson. This is the first book in the Mistborn series. I think this is technically called Final Empire. I don't know why it's just called Mistborn in the UK book, but it's called Final Empire. So we follow a character named Vin and also a character named Kelsier. Kelsier has been in this place called the Pit for the past like 3 or 4 years, and he found a way to escape from it because he found out that he had the power of allomancy. In this world, there is a person called the Lord Ruler, and he's been like the immortal ruler for about 1,000 years. No one has ever been able to take him down, and he has enslaved all of the Scott people. Scott people are taken as slaves. They work for plantation workers, and these plantation workers and also all the noblemen are under the thumb of the Lord Ruler. They're the ones who are favored, and they're the ones who have all the money and everything. And so we also come across a character named Vin. She is with these like crime syndicate people. She is in the underworld of this society, and so she has sort of like this power called luck, and you end up finding out that she is a Mistborn as well as Kelsier's Mistborn. There's people called the Mistings who can only ingest these type of metals to only use one ability, but for Mistborns, they can ingest different metals in order for them to access different abilities. Kelsier ends up rescuing her, taking her under his wing basically, and he has a group of people that are basically like these like crime urchins and like mixture of different people from different backgrounds who come together and basically want to do this heist. And the main heist is to basically overthrow the Lord Ruler. I absolutely love this book. This was my first 5-star of March, and I love Brandon Sanderson's writing. He has such easy writing to get into. It was so easy to understand, and I don't know what Brandon Sanderson put in his books, but I couldn't put this book down. It's an almost 700-page book, but I started caring about the characters right away. There's so many good things in this book. I absolutely loved it. I couldn't put it down. I can't wait to continue on with the Cosmere universe and finish the series. And of course, I gave it a 5 stars because it was so in-depth, and because I was reading this in the middle of like also We Who Will Die, I honestly felt like that didn't give a good chance for We Who Will Die because it's such like a surface level like book, whereas this one goes into so many themes and so many aspects, and also character deep dive, and also the world is so in-depth, and I highly recommend picking this up. If you are intimidated by Brandon Sanderson's whole Cosmere world, pick this up. It's so easy to get into, and I absolutely loved it, and I can't wait to continue on with the series. I'm so excited I finally started my Cosmere journey. And then I was craving a sort of palate cleanser, and this was also part of my March TBR, so I ended up reading Book Lovers. This was the last book on Emily Henry's backlist that I had not read, and this follows a character named Nora, and she's a literary agent. She lives in New York, and also her younger sister lives in New York too. Her younger sister's married, and she has 2 kids and a 3rd one on the way. And so Nora has a sort of interaction with a person named Charlie, and Charlie is sort of like an editor, and she is trying to basically market her clients like books to different editors, and Charlie did not like the way it was written, and it was based on this place called Sunshine Falls. It's like a small town romance that the client ended up writing about. So they have a bad interaction. He tells her that the book is not going to go anywhere, and 2 years later the book ends up becoming like a literary success. Nora is a big career woman, workaholic. She works when she's not at the office. She's constantly answering text messages, emails, and everything from like her different clients, and she's always available to them. So Libby says they want to have a vacation together for maybe 6 weeks before she gives birth to her 3rd baby, before she gets super busy with that. So they end up going to Sunshine Falls. They find that Sunshine Falls is not as picturesque as the book made out, and also she finds out that Charlie is also there, and he's helping out with a bookstore his family owns, and he's from Sunshine Falls. And so they end up like trying to work together to edit this book. I think this is my new favorite on top of like Happy Place, which is crazy because Happy Place has been my favorite Emily Henry book for the longest time. I related a lot to the character of Nora. She is like the only person who's ever taken care of Libby ever since her mom passed away. She's taken on the role of mom. She's taken the role of being like a dad, also because their dad abandoned them when they were kids. I loved like the little thoughts in her head, how she has felt having to be the responsible one for her older sister. I love this one so much. Like I said, it became my new favorite Emily Henry book. I love the relationship between Nora and Charlie, and he wants her exactly how she is. I started crying so hard. I think Nora was like my most relatable character of all Emily Henry books. I love how she writes things, and I love how their story came about, and there wasn't necessarily like a 3rd act conflict that like the characters had to go over. It was just something like natural that unfortunately, because of their situations and because of different points of their life and the decisions they each had to make, it was such a good book. I think Nora and Charlie are probably like my favorite couple out of all of Emily Henry's books, and I'm just so in love with this whole entire story and how different it was, and how it wasn't like a typical small town romance book where everything was like fixed at the end. Life is not like that. Life is just can get cleanly fixed up just because you choose to stay in love with somebody. Unfortunately, it's just another one of those things where problems keep going on, life keeps going on, and you have to make decisions for yourself and hope that the person you have with you at the end of the day and the people that you love at the end of the day will respect the stuff that you want and end up like supporting you throughout it. And also, it was a story of how Nora basically chose herself at the end of the day and stopped sacrificing everything that she wants and everything that she needs for people in her life, that she deserves to be happy too and deserves to go after what what she wants and not have to think about anybody else to do it. It was just perfect. I loved it. I absolutely love this book, and I gave it 5 stars, like I said. I also picked up The Serpent and the Wolf by Rebecca Robinson. Again, this was another book that was on my March TBR, and this book is like a very short book. It's not that long compared to other fantasies that we're used to. It's about 345 pages. Well, 342 without the acknowledgements. Sorry if there's any changes in lighting or angles. My battery died and I think I just talked too much in these videos. As I was saying, I read The Serpent and the Wolf by Rebecca Robinson, but this follows a character named Vasa, and she is forced to marry a person named Reed who is from a different country that is sort of like in the south. It starts off with her being on her wedding night where she basically ties up her husband and like runs away and tells him that to not come after her, and puts a knife to his throat and says, if you ever come after me, then I will unalive you. And so she runs away. She sort of like has this like power where it's like shadow powers, and she's never really known how to deal with it her entire life. Apparently it's something that she inherited from her mom. So basically he wants to become a headman of all the different like foremen in the different countries that he's a part of, and he'd basically like be in charge of all this. So he says that if you become my political alliance and like help me be stronger to get votes, then I will help you control your powers, because he has access to different people who can help her with her powers. And so she ends up taking the deal, obviously, because she wants to learn how to do her powers, and also it's better than running away. It's very political forward and fantasy forward, but I just didn't like it. It was boring majority of the time. I had to listen to majority of it on audiobook because that's how bored I was. It was fine at the beginning. I liked the whole entire world and how she was the one with like the shadow powers, and she was the one who had to overcome a lot of stuff. And I don't know. I just didn't find having a good time with this. I was just bored majority of the time. I've been losing a lot of my love of fantasy romances, and also I felt like this was so trope driven. Like in the first 25% we had multiple well-known tropes from fantasy romances thrown into the pages. It was listed down all these like popular tropes from these fantasies and was ticked off one by one in each chapter in the first few chapters. At that point I knew that it wasn't going to be the book for me. It wasn't a terrible book, to be honest. I thought it was written well, and I thought the world was written well. It's just I didn't have any connection to the characters, and the characters are literally the most important thing to me in books. I need to know inside and out who they are, and I need to see character growth. And I just felt like the thing with Vasa is that she had character growth, but I just felt like it happened way too fast, and the conflict she had within herself about her powers, about her past, about her family just was kind of resolved in her head pretty quickly, just so we can get to the point of the political stuff that we had to go over in the world. I ended up giving it 3 stars, and I already know I'm not going to continue on with the series. Like if you love fast-paced, politically forward books and don't mind like the different tropes in here, I suggest it. It's not a bad book whatsoever. It's just I don't personally recommend it at all, especially if you're kind of like growing tired of formulaic fantasy romances. So unfortunately I didn't like this one. And because I needed a palate cleanser from that book, I picked up The Wedding People by Alison S. Patch. This follows a character named Phoebe who is a professor at this college, and so she's married to her husband Matt. They're both professors at this college. She is an adjunct professor, so basically she takes over whatever main professor needs that is like tenured, and then she ends up finding out that Matt was cheating on her and ends up leaving her for one of the other professors at their school. She ends up going to this, this hotel called the Cornwall Inn, and so she ends up going there to unfortunately unalive herself. And when she's checking in, she finds out that there's like a wedding party happening this whole entire week. So she ends up going upstairs after she gets checked in, and she's in the elevator, and so the bride ends up walking into the elevator. Lila ends up like conversing with Phoebe and finding out that she's not a part of the wedding. She's not from like a family member somewhere. She asks Phoebe why she's there, and Phoebe honestly answers her that she's there to unalive herself. And so basically Lila makes it her whole mission. She can't do that in the middle of her wedding because they'll ruin her wedding week. She inadvertently starts getting involved in this wedding and ends up meeting like her family and friends and also the groom. And I absolutely loved this book. It was written so well, and for such a serious topic and how it starts off, it's surprisingly really funny. There is a lot of dark humor in this, so if you do not have like dark humor, you probably wouldn't find this as funny, but I thought it was like funny. I love dark humor myself. I think like humor is the best way to overcome a lot of like hardships you're going through. It's very great summary book because this takes place over in like New England area. I think it's Rhode Island that it takes place in. That's where the whole entire resort is set at. It's not a real resort. I don't think it is, but it's so good. I love that it was like humorous, yet it was not lacking in depth. Like there was a lot of depth that was coming into these different characters. It's so good how it comes about. It's definitely different than I thought it was going to be, and I gave this a 4.5. I thought the writing was so beautiful, and I highly recommend this book. The last book that I picked up, and the book that I've been reading for the past month or so, is City of Glass by Cassandra Clare. This was also on my March TBR, and I ended up finishing it yesterday. I didn't think I was going to end up finishing it because this book is so long, and also the beginning of the book was kind of slow. So if you don't know, this book is like the first series that Cassandra Clare has ever written for the Shadowhunters universe. The Shadowhunter universe has like 20 books in it. There's like 3 currently different trilogies that are in the whole entire series, and there's like novellas in between. I am making my way through the whole entire Shadowhunter universe to prepare myself for the Wicked Powers book coming out in November. And so this book follows characters who are basically half human, half angel. They have sort of abilities that are stronger, and they use like this thing called the stele where they can do marks on each other's skin that helps their abilities like be stronger. They can be faster with these Shadowhunter marks. And they also live in a world where there's people called the Downworlders, and Downworlders have like magical powers. They are the werewolves, the vampires, the shapeshifters. I think I mentioned warlocks, witches, fairies. Those are the Downworlders. We follow 2 characters named Jace and Clary, and Clary starts off with being a mundane. She doesn't know anything about the Shadowhunter world, and when she starts off in the first book, she and her friend Simon end up going to this club called the Pandemonium, where Shadowhunters are known to hang out, and she sees sort of like a demon attack that happens with these Shadowhunters, and she ends up finding out that she has this full-on connection with the Shadowhunter universe, and she ends up finding more about her past. I love this series for what it is because it's the typical YA books where they were made from the 2010s, where like it was just a fun good time. It was nothing serious going on. I gave this book a 4.5 stars. I thought it was going to get just like a 4 stars at the beginning because it did take me about 40% of the way to actually start getting into the book. It's very bingeable, but the first part of the book was just so dramatic. Like it was just basically Jace and Clary like arguing with each other the whole entire time, and Jace trying to protect her but doing it in the worst ways possible and being unkind to her and all that stuff. And it's just so YA. It's so dramatic, filled with so much teenage angst in this book. It's just so funny, but I love the Shadowhunter world. I am so excited to move on with the rest of the series because I know the Mortal Instrument is basically her weakest series. I personally love Infernal Devices, and I also love the Last Hour series. I've not read the Dark Artifices yet. I'm so excited to finally get to it because I finally get to read those books for the first time. But yeah, that was it from me. I always talk way too freaking long in these monthly wrap-ups because I just want to get all my thoughts through, trying to articulate how I felt about the books, honestly, because there's a lot of thoughts that I have in these books when I'm reading them. I'm trying to think critically about them and try to recommend honestly if you should read them or not, especially if you have the same taste as me. So I know I'm gonna like edit this video and know that I forgot a lot of stuff that I wanted to talk about, but it is what it is at this point. So I had a great reading month. I can't wait for April. There's so many new books coming out in April that I'm so excited for, and continuing series on, and also a lot of them are getting concluded as well because a couple of them are duologies. I want to say thank you for watching. Thank you for listening to me rant again about books. If you want more videos like this, like and subscribe. It really does help my channel a lot, and I'll see you all next time. Bye!